gosh.
Yep. Feeling fresh.
All right. So many questions, Ryan.
So many questions, so few answers. Yeah, I mean, Tony, here's the thing. For the participants, Tony's pretty surprised because I'm wearing a tie and a button-down shirt. But, you know, you have to think about this a little bit. I mean, for the last 2 months, I've gone through every T-shirt that I ever had in my entire life. They're all dirty. And I look at my closet this morning and I think, wow, look at all those clean shirts hanging there. My poor dry cleaner hasn't seen me in how long? I need to get one of these guys, dust it off, put it on. And then I thought to myself, wow, I'm going to put on a button-down. I might as well consider at least something sort of fresh and clean to go with it. And it's springtime, and pink is the color of optimism and positivity. And right now we're in a world where people are wearing dark navy blue, and they're angry. Notice what Tony's wearing, dark navy blue, but pink and white. That is the smiling color. That is the we're going to bring some joy to the world today. So, you know, sometimes you got to go with that look.
I don't even have a comeback. I got nothing. I think Ryan, I've known you now for 7 years-ish, 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen you have a tie on.
Your entire life?
I don't think so. I don't think you. I think this is. I didn't know you owned a tie. I figured if you wanted a tie, I could lend you one, but I had no idea.
Well, yeah, I think that's my go-to is for, you know, big presentations or what have you. A few months ago, I was doing a Colorado Real Estate Journal presentation on private clients and residential real estate, and every single guy there is suit and tie and all that kind of stuff. And I show up in, as one of our associates would say, a belly T-shirt with the jacket on, because you can see my belly button. So I'm sure that's.
Which, for those of you who don't know, Ryan, that's just a T-shirt. You know, when you're 7 feet tall, everything's a belly T-shirt. So,
there it is.
Well, everybody, thanks for joining us this morning. I had no idea what a treat it was going to be, and maybe we'll change the dress code. To attend the webinar, you have to be in a shirt and tie going forward. We're just going to shake things up. I don't think that's going to happen.
We'll never require that, but maybe it should be to attend the webinar. You have to wear something that is mentally disruptive, just weird. Like, this is just weird attire. So,
I love it so much. Okay, everybody, thanks for joining us. We are actually live right now on YouTube and on Facebook Live as well. I think there's some form of magic within Zoom, the good kind of magic that makes that happen. So we're excited for that. We have people viewing us worldwide right now, Ryan, and that's pretty exciting for Atlas. So with that, we're going to kick it off, and Ryan will open up with some comments. And again, I'll remind you, Q&A is easy. Just click the button at the bottom of your screen that says Q&A, and you're able to type in your questions there for us, and we'll get to as many of those questions as we can. So Ryan, one quick question for me before we start. This weekend's a big deal, man. It is Mother's Day. It is Mother's Day this weekend. And I'd like to know what amazing thing you're going to do for your mother this weekend.
I can't say that because she's probably on the call right now.
She's on the call.
Now, if you would have asked what amazing thing I'm doing for my wife, I'm safe. I know she's not on the call. I know she doesn't care what I have to say. So we're safe there.
Well, reminder for all of you, we have a lot of moms on the phone. Thank you. We love you, and you make the world go round. And for those of you who have a mom or might be married to a mom, don't forget, Sunday's a big deal. So with that, Ryan.
I love that lead.
Ryan, tell us about real estate.
I'd love to tell you about real estate. So I'm Ryan Boykin. Thank you, co-founder of Atlas. To remind everybody on the call, Atlas is 4 things: First one is that we help people with their property management needs. We manage about 3,000 or 3,500 units in Colorado and Arizona, specifically Fort Collins, Denver, Colorado Springs, and Phoenix. Number two is that we are a brokerage, a residential, retail, and investment brokerage. We help people to buy investment properties so they can save money for the long term, help people to buy and sell their home. Third thing is that we work in partnership with Zillow in their Zillow Offers program to help them with the purchases and the sales of their homes that they buy and sell within Zillow Offers. And the fourth is that we have an institutional side to our business wherein we help big institutions, multi-billion-dollar funds, to purchase the homes that they'd like to acquire in a single family for rent model. And we primarily do that in Arizona, Nevada, and Colorado. So that's just a little bit about Atlas. I usually recap that because I think it's a nice thing to know the things that we do and the variety that it represents. The purpose of this call today is going to be a little bit more forward-looking and a little bit more of a lean into what real estate is and what it means in our new environment. I'll do a little data recap, and then we'll, opine a little bit in terms of what the future might bring. I have some interesting facts and some interesting data for you, but I'm going to go on one other little side tangent as it relates to Atlas and as it relates to what our real purpose is as a company. I don't know that I've ever shared this on this venue, but I'd like to today. The mission of our company, our stated mission, is to uplift humanity through real estate. And when I say that, when I look at it, sometimes it feels a little bit grandiose and it feels like a bigger comment than what we can live up to. But let me just dissect that for a second and share with everybody on the call how we get to help with that. In one small way, as an example, we get to help people buy investment properties. And through the investment properties that we purchase them, a lot of times we're helping them to accomplish a savings goal associated with a long-term savings need. Maybe it's around retirement, maybe it's around helping their child to achieve college education one day, who knows for what reason. But we're able to sort of help check that box of survival, which is a longer-term oriented box. It's not the one that puts food on the table today. It's not the one that keeps you healthy in a time of a health crisis, but it is the one that says, gosh, when I'm 70 or 80 years old, I'm going to be okay. I'm not going to be a burden to my family. I'm not going to be a burden to my husband or to my wife. I'm going to be financially okay. And what I found in my life is that when we're able to help check that box for that individual and their long-term savings goals, what happens is this amazing thing where in their day-to-day life today, they become more vibrant individuals to themselves and to their immediate community. And that brings with it a layer and a ripple effect of positivity that is shared and generated to all that they touch. And so I think that there's kind of this nice cause and effect that happens there. I may be reading into it too much, to be honest, but frankly, I'm going to read into it and I'm going to lean into it even more because that is the fuel that burns my fire for Atlas. And I think the fuel that for the folks that you're working with on the ground on a day-to-day basis, how they stay so committed and caring as to what we're doing and the gravity of what we do. Because I think that it has an impact certainly in the long term, but also in the today and what that looks like. On the other side of it, we have the opportunity every day to provide dignity and respect to the residents that we serve in the property management side of our business. And that is a customer service centric business. They are a customer and they are buying our product every single month. And how can we serve them and show them dignity and respect in their journey, in their day-to-day to make their own communities more vibrant, their home more vibrant. So that's a little detour on some of the background of who we are to uplift humanity through real estate. Now I'll leave all that and we can talk about some data and some details, and I'll toggle here between my my notes and this screen. That's why I lean forward every time. So quick collections update. Everybody's curious as to collections. We finished up April very well. I talked about that on the last call. Let's talk about May. It's May 8th. We're 8 days into the month, and I am very pleased to say that we're only tracking 3% behind our historic collections norm for this date in the month. So only a 3% lag from our historic number. That means that May is actually shaping up stronger than April, because at this point in April, we were a little further behind on that number. I think we were closer to a 7% behind the norm. And so to be at 3% right now, I think is a real victory. It gives me encouragement that people are hanging in there. I also think that people that have lost their jobs, you know, they're pulling on unemployment, which unemployment benefits are strong right now. And we're being the lucky beneficiary of that because they have the capital to be able to pay their rents. I think the other thing that's nice about this societally is that even though we have an eviction moratorium, we still have the contract, the trust contract, the human contract between us as the property manager and our owners and the resident as the person living in the home, that we trust one another. We came to an agreement. We're going to follow through on that agreement, even though there may be more leeway legally. You know, you don't want to use the legal means to be your backbone for everything that happens. That's your fallback. That's the, oh, dang, this is falling apart. You always want to have as your first line of defense, hey, we shook hands. We're in good shape. This is Ryan and Tony making a deal. So I'm really pleased to see that. I hope that it continues throughout May. A very encouraging sign, and we'll see what June, July, and so on look like as our economies begin to open up to some degree, and as the social contracts and fabric get questioned daily. The other side of this is our leasing update. Leasing remains very strong. I'm very pleased with how much we're able to lease homes. We're able to lease them at the rates that we're trying to achieve. Now, admittedly, we're not reaching for the stars on those rates in every circumstance. We're maintaining the rent rate that we were prior at, or maybe doing small rent bumps, but we are leasing and our leasing velocity is strong. I do think that we're starting to see a little bit of a lag in the time that it takes to get that lease signed. So we historically have taken about 10 days from the time of move out to the time of new lease sign for our new residents. And that 10 days is inclusive of all the time that it takes to fix up a property and do the tenant turn, all the leasing and advertising, getting it signed, collecting all the money, et cetera. I think that date is starting to move closer to 12 to 15 days. And the reason for that probably leans on the fact that we went through a period of time where showings were really difficult to achieve. You're doing a virtual showing, that means you're getting less traffic. You're not able to do pre-leasing. And so pre-leasing, and actually there may be people on the call that don't understand that one of the reasons why we're able to achieve that 10-day quick turn time is because of the pre-leasing that we do all the time within Atlas. So pre-leasing basically means that the existing resident says, hey, Atlas, I have to move out in 30 days, excuse me, 60 days. I'm giving my 60-day notice at my lease that I'm not going to renew my lease and I'm going to be moving out. Well, once our property manager gets that news, they immediately go into the leasing program of, okay, great, Mr. Resident, I'm going to go out there and do an inspection of your home, check and see what it looks like, see what we need to do so that we're ready when you move out with all of our vendors to do the turn, et cetera. That's going to happen no matter what. But in addition to that, in most cases, that home is in nice enough condition that we can begin to market that home for its next lease, for its next resident. And so we pre-lease that such that in many cases, we're able to have the lease signed prior to when even the resident has moved out, the current resident. Now, they may not move in for a week or two thereafter because we still have to do a little fix up and what have you. But that pre-leasing tactic has been very strong for us historically. And right now, that's a tactic that we cannot employ because that would be a commingling and would violate the social distancing rules that have been set up. So that's going to lead to a little bit longer lease time. So that's the update on leasing. And I anticipate that leasing will continue to be strong. Obviously, we're in the summer months now, and so there's going to be a lot of leasing inventory that's going to come online. We have seen more inventory pop up in the last week. We look at the data weekly in terms of rentals that are available, but we would expect to see that in May. I expect to see more rentals come in May and June and July, and then it'll level off to a degree through August and into the fall because this is the leasing season for all renters. Next thing that I wanted to comment on, and I'll probably say a couple more things, and then I'll start to open it up for question and answer. If we don't have Q&A, then I'll revamp on some other content that I have. What is the resilience of the economies that we participate in? So we're in Arizona and we're in Colorado. Let's just limit it to those two. And probably for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to focus in on Denver and Phoenix. Historically, Denver has been a very resilient economy over the last 20 years. We were the third most diversified economy in the nation prior to this collapse. That is a very, very big deal because it means that if any one segment is hurt, we have all the other segments to prop it up. And we have historically, over the last 5-10 years, been at the top of the nation in terms of very, very low unemployment, very strong wage growth, some of the best net immigration into our state and into our city every single year. So all the fundamentals of our economy were very strong. Where do they look today? Well, today for Denver, a couple of points that I'd make. Our economy is still made up of about 20% oil and gas, somewhere in that range. And I don't have the exact figure. In fact, 20%, I'm probably misquoting that. Downtown office space is the figure that comes to mind. 20% of downtown office space is still occupied by oil and gas. So that's a commentary on how much of our economy is still based on oil and gas. What does that mean to our residential portfolios? Well, Occidental, one of the big oil and gas producers represented in our state, announced yesterday or the day before that they're now going to sublease 130,000 square feet of downtown office space because they no longer need it. And that was the deal that they did with Anadarko. Well, what does that mean to office real estate? We can go down that vortex. I'm not going to. I think what's more important is oil and gas is a stabilizing force of our economy in terms of the production of oil and gas and the labor that it hires. And that labor primarily is seen in the northern part of our state. So imagine Brighton and Greeley and all the way, everything in between. Also on the western slope, there's a lot of natural gas. And so that's impacted. So those economies right now are going to be relatively more impacted by the difficulties of oil and gas versus the Denver economy as a whole, a little bit more diversified. You see that in Denver right now, we actually have a lot of tech companies that are hiring through this, and there's a good stability there. So hopefully that plays off each other a little bit. Unemployment numbers came out this morning, 15% for the United States. Denver is at about 10%, pretty strong number. And I believe, and Tony might have certainty on this, I believe that Phoenix is at about 11% right now. Tony, do you have the exact number?
I don't. We're extrapolating that a little bit, but I think high 10, low 11% is probably about right.
So both of our economies, Phoenix and Denver, seem to be quite a bit stronger than the nation. Obviously, you have other parts of the nation like Michigan and Detroit that seem to be at 25% unemployment. So that's a sign of gratitude that we're investing into our Atlas thesis, which is we invest into 20-year markets, which basically just means that we're investing into markets that have great economic fundamentals. Next comment that I might make specifically for Phoenix, and I think also for Denver, or maybe Colorado a little bit more broadly, is tourism will have a big impact on these two economies. Phoenix has a big tourism component from the snowbirds and from second homes. And whenever you have a price compression and an economic recession, people say, I don't have money for my second home. I'm not going to travel there. I'm going to sell it. I'm not going to be able to buy my second home. So I do think that's going to have an impact on the Phoenix marketplace. I think that for Denver, the mountain and resort communities are going to have a pretty big impact. I had a friend call me and say, hey, I've got a deal under contract up in the mountains and I got $50,000 off on the list price because of what's going on. And he said, don't you think this is a great thing and we can get this and we've been waiting to do it? And I said, hey, bro, cancel the deal. There's no way I'm going to buy a deal in the mountains right now. I read a statistic yesterday that Banff up in Canada, which is heavy tourism, is 85% unemployed right now. You just can't have price appreciation. You just can't have demand in the marketplace. You can't have stability in a microeconomy when you're talking about unemployment to that level. And so maybe he is getting the deal of the century at the $50,000 discount, but the uncertainty and the unknown risk associated with that is far greater than the potential value of the $50,000 savings. I want to say savings because we don't know what direction it cuts. So that's a second home environment. That's a tourism environment. Those segments, I think, will get beat up a bit. However, on the reverse, the segments of working class housing, that's a category that I'm a fan of. And the more I dissect this, the more I feel I'm a fan of it. I'm not a fan of downtown office space. I'm not a fan of grade C retail and restaurant space right now. Industrial, some places yes, some places no. But rental housing, I'm just dissecting this left and right, and I'm saying, no, I think this is going to be the place to be. It's a safe place to be. Now, we'll still have our difficulties because we're in a difficult environment. But when I look at the risk component of this, I think it's floating towards the top. So a little comment there on the economic environment. Tony, I know that we're planning for 30 minutes. We're 21 minutes in. We usually go a few minutes over, but I want to check in with you. What kind of Q&A have we seen?
You know, there is a question here about Class C, small retail strip mall assets, and you kind of touched on that just a second ago, Ryan, but talk a little bit more about what you're seeing there and what your outlook is.
I actually think that Class C is a lot more attractive than Class A or Class B. And I think there's reason to believe that category may hang in there because having the opportunity to rent space that is less expensive and be creative on how you use that space is attractive. I also think that our normal housing grounds for Class A retail are, you know, downtown type spaces and Cherry Creek type spaces, and you congregate a lot of people to those spaces. We're not going to do that for a while. And a lot of the spaces in those downtown corridors are going to be vacant. Restaurants bring vibrancy. 50% of restaurants are going to go out of business. I mean, I'm just looking at the cold hard facts. A restaurant cannot maintain their expenses when 50% of the revenue is gone. So there needs to be a giant consolidation. And if there is a consolidation, then those bastions, those anchors of driving people to a retail location are gone. Now, all the retail ripple effect is going to become weaker. Now, Class C is going to be a little bit more resilient just from a cost basis, but I think that Class C and all retail, frankly, is going to need to be much more creative on how they drive their demand. How are you driving somebody to your store? Take a look at malls. Malls are a disaster. This is like game over for malls in very high likelihood. You have an anchor tenant, that's a Neiman Marcus, who's bankrupt, by the way, or Nordstrom, who's shutting down their store in Broomfield right now, and 16 others across the country. And they say, I'm the anchor tenant, I'm gonna bring everybody in. I'm essentially the fly trap for the mall. And all these other small stores that are around that anchor, well, they have provisions in their leases that state, if the anchor tenant is vacant or something happens to them, then maybe I don't have to pay my rent, or my rent goes way down in cost because I don't have anybody that comes to my store unless the anchor exists. So this thought process of retail and why people go to a location for retail, we have to completely recraft. So whether you're grade C or grade A, how are you going to drive demand to your store? Because the old way of, I'm located next to a Safeway, I'm located next to a Neiman Marcus, I'm located in a downtown corridor with fun, unique, hip restaurants, that's all gone. So that's my quick commentary.
Good, Ryan. Thank you.
I have one more thing on that, actually, Tony. I have one more thing on that. All retail, all restaurant, all office, all industrial, all of it. We need to learn how to use our space over a greater picture of the 24-hour period. Okay, we just left an environment where commercial real estate was at, 5 to 10%, depending on the category, vacancy. When you say that, that means that there's 10 available buildings, okay? One of them is vacant, 9 of them have a tenant in them. But the tenant that's inside that building, they're probably only using the building from, if you're retail, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. You're using the building for 8 to 10 hours out of a 24-hour period. Your actual occupancy is 33% of that building. Why don't we have 2 other tenants that are in that building? Well, that means that we're going to have a lot more true vacancy of buildings that have nothing, because this guy's t-shirt store shuts down and he goes over here to the person that's selling, accoutrement for cooking or something and says, oh, I'm going to open up during your closed hours. The cooking guy is open during the day. The t-shirt guy says, all the people come out at night and I want to sell them cool hip t-shirts at night. I'll open up in your store at 6 o'clock when you close. Now you have 2 tenants occupying one building, but both tenants have a chance for success. If I am a commercial real estate owner right now, I'm being as creative as I possibly can to fill my real estate.
It's great. Ryan, what do you think is going to happen home prices in Colorado in light of a recession? Where are home prices going to go?
This is a hyper local comment. Colorado broadly is going to hang in there pretty well. We'll still be at the top of the pack. I'm not going to say that we're going to go up or go down or anything like that. I'll say there's 50 states out there, and we're going to be in the top 10 percentile or something like that, top 15 percentile of how we respond to this. That's my feeling based on our fundamental economics, wage growth, job growth. And this other really interesting thing, I think we're going to see new migration patterns that happen as a result of this. So you have people that live in New York City that are saying right now, I make $500,000 a year or $200,000 a year. I hate my life living in this tiny box, this tiny apartment that I pay an arm and a leg for. Oh, and now I realize that I'm stuck with people all around me, and anytime there's a problem, I'm at the apex of that problem. And my employer just said, you don't need to come back ever. You've been working remotely. You can live anywhere you want in the world. People like that are saying right now, I've always wanted to live in Colorado by the mountains and the fresh air and have that quality of life. They're going to start moving here. And I think that there's other markets that are like that. But people are saying it on the other coast in California where the quality of life isn't there and they're able to maintain their high-paying job, export that to a new locale. I think Colorado becomes one of the beneficiaries of that. So again, top percentiles. That's my feeling on Colorado as a whole. I feel the same way about Arizona on that. And I think that there's the diverse economy, and there's so many benefits in Phoenix of wanting to live in Phoenix and the vibrancy associated with it, with the outdoors and the culture that both of those cities represent. But I can't opine exactly what's going to happen. And real estate is hyper local. What happens in the Highlands neighborhood of Denver is going to be completely different than what happens in Aurora North or Centennial. And so we have to really look at it to that degree, and we have to look at the makeup of that product. And then I would say, again, we need to reclassify real estate in our minds. In Denver, it's 700 grand and above and 700 grand and below. All right. Your product in Denver, frankly, that's 600,000, 500,000 and below. Right now, it is flying off the charts. It moves so dang quickly. Now, over 700,000, we often in our marketplace over the last several years have seen a price bifurcation where that product is going to sit and be a little bit more stale. It doesn't really sit, and it's really not stale right now in Colorado, but we could see more of this. And when you compare it to the 500,000 and below, you can then see there's a difference. But I think that we'll continue to see that difficulty. Jumbo loans are more difficult to achieve right now. And people that have that $700,000 home and above, they just have more certainty. And so they may not need to move or need to buy a home, and they may be a little bit more patient.
Ryan, what do you think about buying land and leasing back to food and wind farms in Colorado?
Is this a question that you brought up, Tony, or did somebody actually?
No, this is an actual Q&A question that this is like a lobbed pitch over the plate for you.
I'm not sure who asked this question. Whoever it is, thank you. This is just a personal passion. I have a big environment passion. We have land that we use to produce conventional farming. So all of our food and ranching and our meat production. And basically you have a piece of land and it's used for one thing, and that's to conventionally farm on it. And conventional farming is really tough on the land. It strips it of its nutrients, it strips it of its water, and it actually takes away the carbon that is stored in the soil, okay, and puts that carbon into the air, making our globe warmer. And if we change those farming practices and ranching practices, we can put the carbon back into the soil where it should be. And one of the ways that I've thought about doing that is you buy a piece of land, you have the farm, you change the farming practices, but then you also put on a wind farm, and you do a lease with a wind farm company to develop clean energy associated with the wind farm. You can do community solar or utility grade solar there. There's all sorts of things you can do to increase the moisture content in the soil so that the soil can actually produce more crops. And in doing that, you're using less of your water rights. That's a cost savings. And in doing that, you spend less money on fertilizer and pesticide. Anyway, there's a whole thing here. It's a cool investment thesis. Who the hell knows? It's just a thesis. It's wrought with risk. You shouldn't do it. I'll do it some crazy day when I got plenty of time on my hands. Thanks for the layup. I'm sure that was from my mom.
I would love to go deeper on no-till farming, but I don't think this is. We'll do another webinar on farming.
I'll ask all listeners if you want to go deep on no-till farming and land investments, and if that sounds fun, I would love to carve out 10 or 15 minutes of a call on this. That's a unique, different way to look at real estate. I think that what's fun about that commentary, and I'll correlate it back to Atlas, is we want to be deep experts in real estate. And in order to be a deep expert, you need to research, you need to look at what's out there and look at the news. That's all really important. But you need to also wake up every day with a curious mind as it relates to your industry and your expertise. And that curious mind says, here's what I think I believe, but here's something new that's knocking on the door. Or here's an idea that's never even been created or thought of before. Or my old thesis was this. I need to throw it away and look at the new thesis. And frankly, I went on a deep discussion yesterday of the old thesis of real estate. And I looked at my prior notes from years. Half of them, I'm striking through. This is dead. This is dead. This is dead. This is dead. I mean, I have to completely throw out the old idea and begin to recraft on the 50. The other 50% was really good. So I'm going to use that as my basis, and I'm going to keep adding to it because this is how you walk into a new.
Good. Ryan, we're at 9:30, everybody. We do have a couple more questions here that we're going to go ahead and answer. And if you'd like to hang around for that, you're welcome to.
Sorry,
Ryan,
Tony,
this
I gotta go. I'm done. No way.
Hey, you don't get dressed up like this and like be in a hurry to get off this call, right?
Yep.
Talk about self-storage a little bit, Ryan. What are you seeing, and what are your thoughts around self-storage facilities?
Well, we are leaving an environment for self-storage where we had too much supply. So I don't know a lot about self-storage, but I've dug into the weeds a little bit, and it got overbuilt in the last year or two. Not majorly overbuilt, but still overbuilt. And you saw self-storage operators say, we're having to do a lot of incentives to get people in here. It's taking us time to get the lease up if we're coming out of the ground to get to a stability of leasing and stable leasing. The metric went down a little bit because percentage of occupied units. Stability just meant something different than it did in the 5 years prior. So you don't want to leave an environment where you had a little too much supply and then walk into a recession. That's not a good starting point. Now, having said that, self-storage is something that I think sticks around. I just look at that, and I haven't gone deep to think through how this environment really impacts self-storage, but my initial gut on it is that it's a category that is just necessary. We have a lot of things. There's not enough places to put those things. It's part of the transient nature of our society in some ways. And I think that transient nature is further accentuated right now because people can be more mobile, and they sit there and they say, yeah, my home base is probably Denver, but I'm going to take a year. I'm going to go test out another place and live there. Or I'm going to go travel. And you have young people that might be saying right now, you know what? I was thinking about buying a home. And actually, with all of this, I'm even less certain of that. I want to continue to rent for a year or two. And that renter populace, so our percentage of homeowner to renter over society, the long-term trend was about 67% of our society was a homeowner. And Tony, if you think I'm wrong on any of these stats, let me know, because I haven't looked at them in a while. Over the last 5 or 10 years since the Great Recession, that 67% number gravitated down to like a 65 or a 63 or a 62, depending on what state you were in, okay? So that's a meaningful difference over a 50 or 100-year trend. Now, that 62 or 65, does that trend down again? Because people say, I just want more options. I want the certainty of knowing that if this isn't working for me, I can get out of it. Or the certainty of knowing that if I lose my job or it's not stable or the old economy world that I was in is no longer there, that I'm not hamstrung by this house that I just bought with a big down payment and big cost. I'd rather be in a renting environment. Therefore, self-storage is bolstered because there's sort of a correlation there between being a renter and self-storage. You may have less space to put your items.
Yeah, it's good. It's good commentary. Thank you, Ryan. A couple other questions have come in around, should I sell now? If I'm a seller, is now the time for me to put my home on the market? And if I don't do it now, am I at risk of just seeing the bottom fall out of that and a move from a seller's market to a buyer's market?
There's always a risk. I think that's a very personal question. When you sit down with an investment specialist or an investment broker in our team, we're going to get very personal and we're going to get to know your goals. So just understand that. I'm not answering this for everybody. We need to understand your goals. Generally speaking, if I'm a seller, I'm probably also looking at the price point that I'm trying to sell at. Right now, if I'm trying to sell at $500,000 or less, product is moving and it's moving quick. I'm going to feel pretty confident about saying I'm going to put my asset up there and I'm going to find out what it can garner. And maybe I come off my top price, my dream price a little bit, but I'm still at a really nice price and I'm going to see what it looks like. I also am asking myself on a personal level, okay, I sold my house. What's my game plan thereafter? You know, am I moving from a $500,000 house to an $800,000 house? And there's a little bit of softness in that 800,000 category, and I might be able to get a little bit of a discount, and this one might hold in there on price. Well, that's kind of a nice picture. But if I'm leaving a $500,000 house and I'm going and am I going to rent for a while? Maybe I rent for a year because I'm going to see if the market actually goes down for a year and there might be some discount. So I think that's another big kind of consideration there. That's what I have to say on that. I'm still considering selling on that because I want to see how the market responds. And I'm also not getting so married to the idea because I might put my property up for $500,000 and I might say, I'm going to put it up there for 30, 60 days. And if we don't get the price that I want, that's fine. My backup plan is this. So I'm going through the iterations of this is my ideal situation. but I'm still great if this happens, and I can live with this, and I'm going into it eyes wide open.
That's good. Ryan, we don't have any other questions. Would you like to make some closing comments?
I mean, you always lay up these softballs for me. Closing comments. I've already given a diatribe today on several things. I think only thing that I'd mention is one of my passion projects is a company called Archipelago. And tomorrow, Saturday, May 9th, we're having a front porch fest. And hopefully in the meeting notes, we can send this out to everybody. But this is a virtual gathering. You've got 15 or 20 musicians, artists, health practitioners, mala making beads, wine tasting, beer tasting, how to put together a famous dish from Softa, one of the best restaurants in Denver. So basically what we did is we said, let's get a bunch of great creatives in Denver that probably have had a tough time over the last month or two, put them together, do a virtual event, have something fun to do, and have something to celebrate the moving from shelter in place, which today is our last day of shelter in place, I believe, for Denver, to safer at home, which begins tomorrow for Denver, and still be safe, but maybe celebrate one milestone in this journey. So that's happening tomorrow, Front Porch Fest. It's a $25 ticket. 100% of it goes to charity. We've had all sorts of great groups sponsor it, like Red Bull and Daybreaker, and looks like we're over. Oh, nope. Tony put something up. He put up our little poster for Front Porch Fest. So if anybody wants to join that, that'd be great. But that's purely non-Atlas related and just for fun.
That's going to be a great time. Yeah, what a cool thing that all those proceeds go to charity. So if you don't have the information on this and you'd like it, we did send this out really broadly. Just shoot us an email, info@realatlas.com, and we will send you all the details on it. What a great way to celebrate. Ryan, I'm going to celebrate tomorrow by shaving off my pathetic goatee in the morning. Oh. So I just want to announce that broadly, and I look forward to that.
I can't wait, buddy. Make sure you have one of your kids. Just have them do it. It'll be a great moment.
Yeah, for who? Everybody, thanks so much for joining us. We love the participation in this, and we're grateful for all of you. Have a wonderful Friday.
This is my new hello and goodbye. Look the person in the eye and hug yourself. Thanks, everyone.